Okay, boys and girls, for our still life room today, we're going to start by drawing the lines of the corner of the room. You can use your black marker or a pencil to do this. What you're going to start with is making sure you put a little dot in the center of your paper. So use your finger to find where you think the middle of the top is, and then scoot your finger down to where you think the middle of the side is, and just put a little dot there. Now from this dot, you're going to go straight up with a straight line all the way to the top of the paper. And then you're going to take this dot and go to the corner of the bottom and to the corner of the bottom of the paper. So all the way down to the corner here, as straight as possible, and all the way down to the corner here, as straight as possible. So now what we've made is basically the corner of a room. This is the wall, and this is the floor. So our still life is mainly going to go right here on the floor. You can put some stuff on your walls too, but I'm going to be setting up kind of like a table on the floor here and putting some things around the table and on top. So now I'm going to make sure my style of my art looks just like Matisse, and I'm going to add some patterns to this wall, and this floor. So we're going to use oil pastels today and some watercolor paint. So I want you to think of at least 3 patterns that you can put on the walls and the floor using your oil pastels. So we know that a pattern is when I repeat a line or a shape. So just pick a simple line or shape in your head and start repeating that line or shape all over one of the walls. So I'm repeating a circle pattern. So I can do big circles, small circles, but I'm going to repeat this circle all throughout my wall here. And once I think I've kind of covered the wall, I can switch to a new color and think of a new pattern. So another line pattern that I can think of would be like a zigzag line. So I'm going to do zigzag lines all the way up and down this wall here. And I'm going to repeat this zigzag all the way down the wall to make sure it looks like a pattern. Okay, once I've gone all the way down this wall here, I can think of a new pattern. So for my floor, I think I'm going to think of like a crisscross line pattern. So I'm going to finish up this wall here with my zigzags. I'm going slow to make sure my zigzags look like a pattern. Okay, now I'm going to switch up my colors, and I'm going to do maybe like a line pattern crisscross. That means my lines cross each other. So I'm going to start with straight lines going across my paper, filling up the whole floor. And then I'm going to flip my oil pastel around and then go up and down lines. So this kind of looks like a checkerboard pattern on my floor. Kind of like it. Okay, my walls and my floor are finished with my patterns. Now I have all this white space here, so what I'm going to do is just take my watercolor paint and just paint over the patterns to make sure I cover up the white spaces. So we're going to use our water paint here. You have a tray with your water cup, so to make sure you have your water paint working, you know that you have to add water to it. So just dip your paintbrush in your water and swish in one of the colors that you want. All right, now I'm gonna paint right over my pattern here because we learned that in our last project, watercolor paint and oil pastels, they kind of don't like each other. They go into their own spaces. So I can paint right over my oil pastel and I won't cover it up. That's because the oily oil pastel kind of makes the watercolor paint bounce off of it and go into the white paper. So I'm just covering up the white spaces here so that my wall is green and yellow. All right, then I'm going to switch up my colors. I might use blue for the next wall, and I'm just going to paint right over my red pattern here using my blue watercolor paint. Now when I'm using my watercolor paint, boys and girls, we know that our water gets a little bit dirty. If it is still kind of see-through, you don't have to replace the water. If it gets really brownish black, then you can replace the water because that might kind of make your colors that you're dipping in your watercolor paint palette a little bit dirty. Okay, one more. I'm going to cover up the floor here, so I'm going to switch to maybe a pink color. Okay, once I painted my walls and my floor here, then my background of my room is pretty much done. So then, after this, I'm going to think about some shapes that I can glue inside of my room. All right, that looks pretty finished there. Okay, I'm going to let this dry for a little bit while I cut out my shape. So I can kind of put this to the side and let it dry for a bit on my table. Now, at your table, you have a whole bin of paper scraps. Your job is to cut out at least 4 shapes that you can glue into your room, and they can be similar to mine or they can be different. So I'm going to show you the shapes that I cut out here. So first I cut out a table, and so using my brown paper, I just kind of drew my shapes onto the brown paper using my marker, and then I cut them out. So if you want to cut out a table similar to mine, you can look at the helpful worksheet at your table to see what lines and shapes I put together to make this table. So we're going to use our glue bottles to start gluing these shapes down once we have them cut out. So my table, I'm going to start to put this on the ground. And then the next thing I cut out was a little tiny carpet. I like how it has kind of like a pattern on it. So I'm going to glue that down below on the floor here, right below the table. Then I cut out a square. This is going to be kind of like a picture on the wall. Then I glue out a big shape called a cylinder. It's kind of like a 3-dimensional shape, and I want this to go on top of the table because that's going to be a little fish tank in my room. Next, I cut out a little vase, and then I'm going to put my flower coming out from the vase here. So I'm going to glue each of these shapes down. You can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's okay to do more than 4. And I'm even going to draw a little stem coming from the flower to the vase here, and I'm also going to do some little tiny fish inside of the fish tank here. So you can draw on top of your shapes that you cut out as well if you want, and I'm even going to take a little bit of blue and paint this on top of my fish tank so it looks like the fish are in a blue kind of like water here. Okay, so you can decide, do I want to do 4 of my own shapes, or do I want to use some of Miss Buettner's shapes? So look at the helpful worksheet at your table if you want to try and copy some of my shapes. Otherwise, look in your paper basket and start to cut out 4 or more of your own shapes to glue inside of your room. And then once you have them, start to glue them down and arrange them with your glue bottle. All right, it looks like I'm finished. I'm just going to glue these down. I need to make sure I put my name on the bottom as well. And I will put this on the drying rack when I'm finished.